Hi, I'm Spencer Ehrenfeld, and welcome to Espresso Talk, the video podcast series from the Attorney Breakfast Club. Today I am joined with Scott Kotler, who not only is one of my favorite people on the entire planet, he is one of the best lawyers I know. He's the criminal defense seat at the Attorney Breakfast Club. Welcome to Espresso Talk.
Spencer, thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Scott, what we want to do today is have you introduce yourself a little bit to those that are watching us. Tell us about yourself, where you're from, and maybe how you and I met.
Okay, I'll try to give a little Cliff Notes version of my biography. Came down to University of Miami from 80 to 84. Obtained my bachelor's in business administration.
But you came from where?
Came from Delaware, little state of Delaware.
You don't meet too many people from Delaware these days.
You don't. You see their boats out in the bay because there's no sales tax. So all those $1 million yachts, they like to register through Delaware and avoid paying the sales tax. Came down to UM 80 to 84, got my BBA, got into law school at UM, but I decided to go back up north, make a decision where I really wanted to be. Went back up for law school at Delaware Law School at Widener University, got my degree, decided I hate the cold weather.
Right.
Back down to Miami it was, applied to all the PD and state attorney's offices in South Florida.
Well, hold on a second. Why? What was drawing you to doing criminal prosecution or criminal defense work?
I honestly didn't know what I wanted to get into, but I did know that I wanted to be a trial lawyer. I wanted to be on my feet speaking. I didn't want to be sitting in a law library. And everybody that I talked to said some of the best trial experience you can get is either as a public defender or a prosecutor.
Okay.
So I applied to the offices, had some interesting choices. Could have gone to the public defender's office in West Palm. I got an offer from Janet Reno down here at the state attorney's office in Miami-Dade. Even got an offer from the immigration department down here.
Exciting.
And went with the state attorney's office in 1987.
And so what kind of cases were you handling when you first got to the state attorney's office?
Started in the criminal traffic division, was doing a lot of DUIs. Did it for actually about a year. I committed to that, and that gave me great experience in the DUI area. From there, I progressed to felonies. The commitment was 3 years. I stayed 4, my last year being in the career criminal unit, going after the worst of the worst. And that's when I got lured out of the office and into the private life.
And the private life being criminal defense work.
It was, but for 6 months. I had a civil firm. Back then it was called Levine & Geiger. They're still around today under a different name, though. It's Levine & Partners. Great trial lawyers. They brought me on, but I realized I just didn't like civil work. No offense to the civil attorneys.
None taken. What is it about criminal work that you find, and no pun intended, so intoxicating?
What I love is that every case is different. Nothing is the same. Each has its own little nuance. It is stressful. I'm not fighting over money or property. I'm fighting over liberty, people's lives. And I just find it very challenging, interesting, dynamic, and I really enjoy it.
Well, we got a lot of questions that came in because people knew that we were having you as our podcast, and your episode 2, our podcast guest. One of the questions is, how do you, Scott, represent people who you may think may actually be guilty?
You know, I get that question a lot. And the answer is, my job is not to necessarily get people off that did something or prove somebody's innocence that didn't. You know, we all have to abide by the Constitution. Everybody is represented or entitled to be represented in a defense. I will get some people that are guilty of exactly what it is the government has said they've done, but they're still entitled to a defense. Sometimes I can make a big difference in what happens to them. Other times I'll get cases where the client really is innocent, and those are the real challenges because you have to show their innocence.
Right.
You're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Unfortunately, when you get arrested, it really is, you need to prove your innocence at that point.
So, now we're in 2017. What kind of cases does Scott Kotler handle today?
Scott Kotler today handles anything in the criminal arena that could start with just an investigation where nobody's been arrested yet. It can be something where they've been arrested, they're criminally charged, either in state or federal court. It could be something as small as leaving the scene of an accident, a DUI. It could be as big as murder, drug trafficking, things of that nature.
And where in the state of Florida do you take cases?
I will take anything in the South Florida area. My home turf, obviously, is Miami. I take cases in Broward. I take cases down in the Keys. Obviously, to go down to the Keys, or let's say up to West Palm Beach, it's going to have to be a more significant case. And I will go up there or down there for the bigger cases, but primarily Dade and Broward, again, state or federal court.
Now, I know I've also referred you cases over the last 20-something years where people have been arrested at like Indian casinos and things like that.
Yes.
How do you go about representing someone who's had a run-in at a local casino?
It has an interesting twist because that is technically federal jurisdiction. It's overseen by either the Seminole or the Miccosukee Police Department. It poses some interesting characteristics, but they're still prosecuted by, the Broward State Attorney's Office, for example. So you just have some interesting nuances, but other than the nuances and issues of subpoenaing witnesses, it's pretty much the standard type of process.
Well, the next question we got for you today comes from a Randy G. He says, with the upcoming holiday season, if, God forbid, he were to get pulled over, should he blow into that tube? What's your advice, Scott?
I get that question a lot. And I also hear a lot of people say, oh, I know that answer. I've been told, do not take the test. I respectfully disagree with that answer. The answer is it depends. If somebody has not been drinking or has had, let's say, one drink, you get pulled over for DUI, officer has you exit the vehicle. Aside from being respectful, not testing his authority, not being argumentative, if you know you've only had a drink or 0 drinks, and also assuming you're not under the influence of drugs, I recommend taking the breath test because you will have either a 0-0 reading or a low reading. And even though by the time you get to the point where you're taking that breath test, you're already under arrest. And no matter what you blow, that arrest will not be undone. When I handle the case or a competent attorney handles the case, they will be able to get that case thrown out in court. Now, if you have had over what will probably be the legal limit, which for a guy our size, let's say, you've had 4 drinks within 2 hours, you're going to be over that .08 limit. I suggest not taking the test. You're still going to be arrested, but at least in court, I'm dealing with what's called a refusal, where they don't know what your blood alcohol level is, versus you take the test, you blow a 1.0 or 1.2, it's in black and white, assuming the test was properly done, you're stuck with that. A judge or jury will know what your blood alcohol level is. So the answer is it depends.
Well, are people permitted to call you if they get pulled over and ask you before they have to make the decision?
They are. However, you'll be hard-pressed to have a law enforcement officer stop his investigation and give you the opportunity to call a lawyer. Has it ever happened? Yes, I've gotten a few calls. It's the exception to the rule. Usually the law enforcement officer is not going to let you stop what he's doing so you can make a call to your lawyer.
So if you're in doubt as to how much you had to drink, because everyone, and this is something I learned from you, is you had a really interesting experiment that you put together at the Attorney Breakfast Club where you actually served champagne or mimosas to a guest. And we were able to watch as that guest's blood alcohol level increased very shortly.
Correct.
So if someone's not sure how much they've had to drink or what effect the alcohol may have had on them, what should they do in that circumstance?
The reality of it is, if they're not sure how much they've had to drink, they've probably had too much.
Right.
It's pretty easy to know if you've had nothing to drink or if you've had one drink. If you're sitting there and you're thinking about it, all right, I was at the bar. After the bar, I went to this other place and I had a couple here, I had one there. Chances are you probably had too many. And believe it or not, it doesn't take a lot to get to that .08 threshold.
Right. What about pot smoking? I mean, and by the way, speaking of pot smoking, is it legal? What's the current state of the legality of that?
Essentially, right now, they have, at least in South Florida, established a county ordinance which allows officers to write a civil citation for somebody that is caught with a small amount of marijuana. Small technically is anything under 20 grams, which makes it a misdemeanor. If you have more than 20 grams, it's a felony. So, officer stops you, small amount of marijuana. What are the options? A, he can just take it, throw it out, scare you, and tell you to go on your way. It happens from time to time. B, he can issue you a civil citation, which is just like a traffic ticket. Fine, you pay it. It's not a criminal charge. C, he can arrest you for a misdemeanor, but not physically take you to jail and give you what's called a PTA, promise to appear. You sign, you show up in court, and you deal with it. Or he could arrest you, take you to jail for that misdemeanor amount of marijuana.
And in terms of driving under the influence of marijuana, is there a method that the law enforcement officers have to detect if you're high?
There is. What happens is, in the state of Florida, you can be driving under the influence of alcohol or under the influence of drugs. Now, there's no specific test that the officer can do right on the scene to determine what drug you're under the influence of. So what they will do is they will bring on what's called a DRE, drug recognition expert, and they will administer certain tests to determine, at least their opinion, as to whether or not you are under the influence of drugs. Then they will ask you for a urine test. That urine test comes back. If it has the presence of drugs in it, they will use that lab report in conjunction with the expert testimony of that officer to be able to say you were under the influence of drugs to the extent that your normal faculties were impaired and you shouldn't have been driving.
Can you refuse to pee in the cup?
You can.
Would you recommend someone do that?
Again, if you have drugs in your system or you know you're going to come up positive, I wouldn't take the test. If you know you're going to be clean, by all means take it. I've had cases where people have blown into the machine, they blow 0-0, they are requested to give urine or blood, they do, nothing in their system, yet they were arrested for DUI. It happens, I've seen it.
And Scott, much like myself, you have at this point in your career sort of diversified what you're doing. In addition to the practice of criminal defense work, what else is Scott Kotler, Esquire, up to these days?
Well, closing in on 55, 56 here.
In spite of his youthful appearance.
I love what I'm doing, but I sort of stepped into something when I took some space up in Sunny Isles with a friend of mine that has a real estate conglomerate. It's called Redbox Realty, and my friend Roman Bocaria, who's the broker, suggested to me that I should be the in-house general counsel for Miami Redbox. I agreed to do so, not realizing just how much work was involved. There's 180 realtors there. They have a mortgage department, a title department, a residential department, a commercial department.
Wow.
A lot going on there. It's a one-stop shop. And I took that responsibility on. It's challenging. I'm learning new things. I handle what I can. What I can't, I farm out. In addition, he's made me the head of the commercial real estate department. I'm getting involved with some big deals there. And amongst all that, he convinced me to get my realtor's license, which I do presently hold.
Congratulations.
So I've got sort of two different lives going on, and they sort of merge together.
It's exciting for the old criminal defense lawyer to have
It is. It keeps me busy.
a new thing to do. But up there in Sunny Isles, there must be a lot of Russian-speaking clients.
There is. There's a large amount of Russians up there. However, surprisingly, even with 180 realtors and a large operation going there, we have a lot of South Americans that are coming in, a lot of Europeans. They want their EB-5 visa. We can find them. We have our business brokerage license. Only about 10% of realtors have that.
Wow.
And we can find them a business to purchase, $800,000 or more, that enables them to get their EB-5 visa. We get that for them. Then they bring the family over. They want the house on the beach. We find that for them. So we can do all of that. But answer to your question, yes, that is a large Russian European community up there.
Have you found that this new net that you're throwing out has snagged some criminal defense clients as well?
Actually, it has a lot. What happens is, I guess with time and with building up clientele and building up trust, people come to me for all sorts of issues that may have nothing to do with criminal. So I'll have a lot of these realtors or people that know me and now trust me. Whatever legal issue they come up with, they come to me. If it's something I can do, great. If not, something maybe Spencer or one of the other ABC attorneys can help with, then I farm it out to them. And that's the beauty of the ABC group. I know these lawyers, I trust them. We have somebody in every seat, and I have a wealth of resources to help me do my job up there.
Well, and I appreciate you mentioning that, Scott. You are one of the founding members of the Attorney Breakfast Club. You've been with us from the very first breakfast to right up till today. And you have been a valuable person for us to refer cases to and to get referrals from, mostly because I know personally that every client I've ever sent you to has been either acquitted or had their charges dismissed. But they've all raved about your responsiveness.
Thank you.
It's something that is unique to what you do is you give out your cell phone number.
I do.
So that phone's ringing 24/7.
It is. In criminal defense, when people get in trouble, they never know when it's going to happen. And when it does, usually the people or the family, they're in a state of panic. And if somebody's arrested for DUI, it's 1, 2 in the morning, they need to reach an attorney immediately. If not, they're going to keep on going down that list of people they trust or whatever resources they use to find an attorney. So I have to be available. I sleep with my phone. I put it out there on the internet. It's on my card. I'm available 24/7.
Your wife must be thrilled, but if you would be kind enough, we'll give your cell phone number out on this podcast.
Sure.
Anyone that's listening or watching Scott Kotler, and God forbid you get pulled over for DUI, you can call him 24/7.
Number is 305-804-2436.
Perfect. Scott, real quick, last subject that we want to talk about is Lawyers to the Rescue. You've been involved in that organization also from its very inception. Would you mind sharing with us what that does and what your experience has been?
Sure. To answer a previous question that I didn't address, when did I meet Spencer? Spencer was in his law school education. He was in the moot court mock trial competition. It was a statewide competition. I, at the time, was at the state attorney's office, and I was asked to mentor his team. I did. That's where I met him.
Yep.
I knew immediately that I was dealing with a superstar here. I'm not just saying that to pat him on the back. It's true.
I accept the compliment. Thank you.
And in fact, him and his partner made it all the way to the state finals, and that's how I met Spencer. We stayed in touch over the years, and next thing I know, I move on my career. He moves on to his. He's got this building. I see his name plastered on a prime throughway of Coral Gables, and he's turned himself into a prominent personal injury attorney. I look back and I say, wow, that's something. But what really hit me was when about a month ago, I went down to federal court and watched Spencer in one of his federal cruise ship trials where he represents victims that are injured by cruise ship negligence. And I heard what was probably the best closing argument I've ever heard.
That's so sweet.
Either in state, federal, criminal, or civil
If
court.
only the jury agreed.
Well, putting aside any verdict, it rang back to those days where I first met you, I first coached you, and it let me know that my gauge on what I saw back then was right on, because you really were a superstar.
Very kind. Very sweet of you. Let's just talk quickly about Lawyers to the Rescue.
Back to Lawyers to the Rescue. So when Spencer approached me and said, I have this 503c that I started with my wife, beautiful wife, Dina.
Thank you.
And it's a nonprofit. And essentially what we're looking to do was to change the image that lawyers have amongst the community. We want to do fundraisers for natural disaster victims. We want to, and we are going to conduct this free pro bono legal clinic at the homeless shelter. Would you be part of it? I was more than happy. He put me on the board of directors. We started off downtown at the old Camillus House. We would many times worry whether we were going to come out and our cars were still going to be there. But we did that. We helped them. We grew. And when they moved to the new facility, which you refer to as the Ritz-Carlton of homeless shelters, the new Camillus House, we took it there. And over the last 7 years, it's blossomed into a huge legal clinic. We have anywhere from 6, 8, 9 lawyers that come out, along with students, law students, college students, that we invite them to come in. We invite them to share in the experience of what happens with one-on-one relationships, developing the attorney-client relationship, helping the homeless. So it gives them an opportunity to determine, do I want to get into law? Is this something that interests me?
Right.
And they help us run this clinic, and we see 20, 25 people in any given month, and then we work on their cases throughout the month, and it's very rewarding. And thank you for that.
Well, thank you. You have done some spectacular things for members of the homeless community, getting criminal records sealed, helping them locate assets they didn't have the ability to get. Just super quick about getting criminal records sealed.
Okay.
Why is that something that was important to you to bring to the people who come to the Lawyers to the Rescue Clinic?
A lot of people will make a mistake in their life, and then the question is, okay, how can I seal or expunge it to assist me in the future so that it doesn't affect everything I do? The short answer is that if you had a criminal case, that case was dropped, you're eligible to expunge it, meaning it's wiped out from the system. If you've had a criminal case, you didn't get it dropped, but you received what's called a withhold of adjudication. That enables you to seal it, which means it's closed up in the system. Nobody can see what's there. In addition, that allows you legally, once that process is completed, to say you've never been arrested. Now, there are a lot of caveats, both between who can get accepted to do one of those two processes, or once you do the process, what really does still remain accessible. But that's a topic for another day. Essentially, it's a mechanism that's out there. It helps people overcome that one blemish that they may have done in their past, and that's why we do this, and we try to help people with it when they qualify.
Well, he's somebody that certainly helps a lot of people. God forbid you should ever need a criminal defense attorney. We strongly recommend that you consult with Scott Kotler. His information, again, is available at the bottom of this podcast. Your phone number again?
305-804-2436.
Founding member of the Attorney Breakfast Club, founding member of Lawyers to the Rescue. Thank you so much.
Spencer, thank
Podcast
you.
number 2, Scott Kotler, ladies and gentlemen. Have a happy holiday.
You too, brother.
Thank you.